Hello there and welcome to the Impact Zone podcast. We're back again talking more TNA wrestling shenanigans, and today I want to talk about something that I've kind of seen around the place here, which is kind of weird, which is these documentary type wrestling programs that, when a heel, especially heels mostly, come on to become, a US or world champion or anything like that. They say things like, well, no one was clamoring for this guy to become the champion. Let me ask you a question. Like, when do wrestling fans clamor for a heel to be champion? That doesn't make any sense. Like, you're saying these guys didn't get over with the fans. Well, they're a heel. They're not going to get over with the fans as far as being like getting like babyface style reactions, dude, or whatever else it is, this sort of thing. They're not going to connect with the audience in that regard. If you're saying, well, they're not getting over as a heel, or they're only getting over with like go away heat or whatever else it is, then I could see like your argument. But again, it still feels like, what you're saying is, like, I can agree on some of them in some regards. Like Jack Swagger, could agree on that. He didn't really get over, but he wasn't, put in the right positions and given the right things to work with. Actually, I should say it's, before I get too far going on to this, I guess I'm referring to not smart marks here, at least in regards to fans calling out for, heels to win titles, because, or maybe now it's become a little bit more generalized as well, with more people getting smart to the business and whatnot and that sort of thing. But still, it never really seems like that. It never really seems like fans would actually en masse. Like, sometimes they have, like when people were like kind of sick of John Cena, like the older section of the audience really, were anti-Cena, and so they started, cheering all the heels, because, at least anyone that's facing Cena is now babyface in their eyes, and that sort of thing. But still, you don't see this very much. Like, maybe like people talk about Roman Reigns kind of recently, like fans were right behind that, even though it was a heel run and whatnot, because it was, something, done so well, had so many different elements, and there was always other twists and turns in the saga. It wasn't just he's here for forever type thing, and it was starting to become like that. But the other things that you kind of craft around these types of things are the things that make those things interesting, because if you haven't got a lot kind of going on with some of these things, it can become like that very much, where it's like, well, come on, type thing of, we don't want to just see this. Yes, we understand why this is happening or what's going on here or whatnot, that sort of thing. But, the idea here, what is the idea here? The idea here is, this person getting over, or that person getting over, or whoever, whatever, or trying to cultivate that young talent or whatever it is. Because, like, even if you're saying, well, in a year or two, whatever it is, you don't know, or even in a few months, you don't know if this person's going to be on your roster still. They could go to AEW, or they could go to WWE. It doesn't matter. Like, you've got to be like, and when like, if people go, oh man, they just, like Speedball Bailey, sort of fairly recently, he just debuted on AEW, even though that was, rumored for, I don't know, months and months and months. But, like, what did people say about Bailey? Really, they said, oh, he was great at TNA. That's what you kind of want. You kind of want people to be like, oh man, they were doing great stuff over at TNA, and TNA was using them well and doing stuff with them and all this other stuff or whatever. So you want to give fans that kind of, like, yeah, he's got that kind of background, whatever else. So, you know, hey, maybe like we might have seen something here or something there or whatever it was from his run there or whatever it is. But there's obviously still some really good stuff there to check out. So why not let's check it out? That's the ultimate kind of goal for anything like this. Even if somebody doesn't know somebody all too well, like that, like, oh, who's this guy? Oh, he's from TNA. He's done some good stuff there and whatnot. Then somebody might be like, oh, well, I might go back and watch some of his stuff then. You know, like somebody says to me about somebody from New Japan or from the Indies or whatever it is, and they say, oh, they were mostly in GCW or wherever it was or whatever it is. Then I might be like, oh, okay, well, cool. I don't know whether I'm going to check that stuff out. I might check out something or here or there, whatever it is. But again, like at least like you're getting that perspective of, oh, okay, you know. And that is one of those problems of like some of these, I don't want to say no-name talent, but younger talent, less established talent, less well-known talent is like that of getting like that reputation or that knowledge, you know, out there to people of saying, this is who I am. And, you know, you've got to pay attention, you know. But there's a lot of those people. That's the problem as well. But yeah, like I do feel like the perspective that some of these, well, I don't know, announcer or whatever has sort of come out with, doing it in that way is wrong, saying that these people didn't get over with the fans or whatever. Like, you have to say it kind of like in the right way. You have to say they had go away heat. They didn't, like, people didn't really care about them as far as being a heel. Like, they weren't invested in their heel, you know, character or whatever else it was, you know, that sort of thing. You can't just say, oh, they weren't over because they're a heel. Like, obviously they're not over, you know, as being a babyface or whatever. You've got to put that context into being a heel, you know, or the perspective of saying this person just wasn't ready or whatever it was, you know, so the fans kind of had go away heat for them, or they just, you know, did not care. They didn't give a shit. They didn't react in any real way to think that, oh, this guy, you know, deserves to be there, or it feels like this is, you know, a moment or whatever it was. I really felt like that for a lot of Speedball Bailey's, you know, run in TNA. Actually, like the only time that I felt like he kind of felt like somebody that, you know, had a moment or had something going for him was with the Ali thing, because that was like a real feud going on for months and whatever else it was. So that's what you've got to create for people, whether they're heel or whether they're face. But yeah, like I just think that that's like, again, like saying, oh, this sort of thing, it doesn't make any sense, you know. Like you can sort of, like, if you want to tease it out yourself and try to make it make sense, like you could like try to frame it yourself and saying, oh, well, he must be talking about, you know, the amount of like actual heat that he had, and he's just talking about go away heat, or he's just talking about, you know, that sort of thing. You know, this person wasn't the right fit, or people were just like on their hands for this person. They didn't care one way or the other, and they were just getting annoyed by the fact that, you know, whoever it is, the great Khali is the world champion. You know, it's like, well, why did you do that for? And I think, like, again, you could make an argument of saying, well, we need some heel to hold the title from a point to another point, so that when Batista or whoever wins it, it feels like, oh, that's a big moment. But you need somebody who can really carry a really good feud too. So just having somebody there, and especially somebody who, again, was limited in the ring, you know, you could, like, if you made up for it in promos and other stuff, it's like, oh yeah, okay, maybe you could make it work. But also that side of it wasn't too strong. So, and I think, again, perhaps like the amount of effort sometimes wasn't there on WWE's part or whatever it was, but still, it is one of those things. So yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, this is, you know, where we're at, guys. You know, like we're the fans, you know, at the end of the day, who, congregate the message boards and write in chat groups and, you know, get involved and do these podcasts and do different things like this where, you know, people, you know, can share their opinions and, you know, can sort of share their thoughts and try to make the product as best as it can be. But these other people, like, their goal isn't that. Their goal is, I don't know. I don't know whether it really is their goal to be so biased and so anti-TNA or whatever else it is. But this is ridiculous, guys. You know what I mean? It's just like, I want to shoot them in the face, you know, for what they're doing, because it's like very biased as well. Like a lot of the time, they release something, you know, like the worst TNA matches at Rebellion or whatever, you know, something like that. The 5 worst matches or whatever else it was, the 5 worst moments or the 5 worst promos or the worst TNA wrestlers or something like that. But they won't come back and go, oh yeah, here's the best. That's what I mean. Like, you know, there's no like let's try to have a even-handed kind of approach or anything like that of saying, oh, well, we said some bad stuff, that's fair enough if you say, oh, yes, some bad stuff, but if you're never coming back to say some good stuff, then it's like, well, here you are, you don't really care, or you're just a hater, or whatever else it is. Or you just, maybe it is one of those things of like, well, people just want to see the negative videos. And I think, again, it does help that TNA is a lot smaller in some ways, because not as many of those people now care as much about kind of or now cared about what TNA was kind of doing for a while, and kind of forgot about it and were like, oh, AEW this, AEW that, AEW for so long. And now AEW is starting to, you know, go downhill a bit and whatnot, at least in some people's minds and whatnot, and that sort of thing, especially in tickets, we know that. But, you know, like, again, TNA is doing pretty well, like, in terms of, you know, actually people attending, you know, from where they've been in the last, like, you know, few years, or at least, like, 10, 11 years, or whatever it's been. So, again, like, if you actually look at the numbers, the proper numbers of them, you know, selling these arenas and, you know, getting these record pay-per-views and whatnot, it can only be good things. Like, no matter, like, the little things that I say, hey, you know, they could work on this, or this could be different, or I prefer this, or I'd like to see this, whatever. At the end of the day, they're doing a good job, like, mostly, like, because they're making money. And until they're not making money and people aren't interested anymore, like, that's the point at which they've, you know, come to that point of saying, well, you know, yeah, we have probably starved the fans of the things that they wanted, you know, and perhaps that is one of the things that they're trying to do. They're trying to get perhaps this feud between Joe Hendry and maybe Nick Nemeth to reach another level. So perhaps the reason why they wanted to turn Nick Nemeth was to, you know, in that 10-man tag. I guess you could have done it another way, but again, like, you know, like, then you could have done a million things, like, with it, you know, and I don't know whether his heel turn 100% makes sense. It makes some amount of sense, but until we, like, get the following promo, I guess it won't make 100% sense, but in a lot of ways it does make sense, because it's like, well, Hendry needs more heels to go against, so, and Nemeth owed a contractual rematch, so that makes sense, that he'll be going up against Hendry at some point as a heel, you know, and perhaps they want a big feud with Joe Hendry and Elijah, or, Elijah and Nick Nemeth, or Elijah and whomever else. But still, they probably still all as well want one with Joe Hendry and Elijah, because they know that will be big business, So, and trying to take baby steps towards that, and also take not baby steps, but sort of take baby steps towards a match with Nick Nemeth or whatever it is. Because again, like, if you had Nick Nemeth come back and then lose and then turn, like, against Hendry, and then turn heel, it wouldn't have been as good. He needed to come back and be doing something and turn heel, if that was your plan, and then go on to challenge Hendry after that. So you needed a challenger for Hendry that couldn't be Elias and couldn't be Nick Nemeth, unless you didn't keep Nick Nemeth off TV for 4 weeks or whatever it was. And then, say, okay, well, let's bring him in and turn him heel at some point this week, and then let's build it to a match at Sacrifice against Hendry or against somebody or whatever else it was. And again, like, I think the heel turn, like, the way they did it, I think, again, like, it should have been against Hendry. Really, I think he should have attacked Hendry. Like, that makes the most sense, in my opinion, at least. Like, if you're attacking Matt Hardy, it's like, well, that indicates to me that you're not going after the title, the world title. You're going after the tag titles, or you're going after the Hardys for some reason, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It could make some sense, but, like, there's not that much in that. I think you have more beef with Hendry than with that, or with Slater, maybe even. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know, guys. But those are my thoughts. And this is an ongoing issue. I don't know whether it's ever going to clear up or anything like that. I think we've got to always be working on this. But again, it's just one of those things that is still on the radar for me as far as the problems that we face. It's not so much that TNA is that bad. There are things that they could work on, obviously, but it's all this negative, biased sort of media that's kind of out there, and us trying to have this conversation of saying, well, when somebody says, oh, this person isn't getting over, or that person isn't getting over, well, I don't know whether you're right or whether you're wrong, because, like, you can certainly say that to some extent. Like I've said, I don't know whether Speedball Bailey got over. I don't know. But some other people might say that he did to them, like, beyond that match with Mustafa Ali. But again, was he ever world champion material? I don't think so. Like, again, that's where you can sort of draw the line of saying, well, you can be a little bit less or missing something if you're just in the mid-card, or you're like those sorts of guys or whatever in a tag team or whatever else it is, because there's more room for guys in that division rather than being in the heavyweight division. If you're, the world title division, the main event scene, if you're in the main event scene, you've got to have just about every tool in the playbook. You know what I mean? You've got to be able to decently wrestle. You don't have to be the greatest wrestler in the world. That's why, again, like, I wasn't the biggest fan of Cena, but, like, I realized what his job was. His job isn't to be the greatest wrestler or whatever else or whatnot. His job is to put butts in seats. His job is to shill merchandise. That's his job. Like, same with Steve Austin, same with Hulk Hogan. They weren't there to be the greatest wrestlers of all time. They were there to be a draw. They were there to be the moneymaker. And that's what you've got to look for in a main eventer. You're not looking for, like, if you're the greatest wrestler as well, or you're the best promo in the world, well, sometimes that best promo or the best wrestler can, get to that point. But again, realistically, what you need to be the top guy is to be able to, pull tickets or pull merch or pull both, pull pay-per-view buys, pull, ratings or numbers or whatever else it is. Those are your goals as the main event guy. So, there. Anyway, guys, that is my thoughts here. Hope you guys have enjoyed this one, even if I've sort of, gone through another tangent here and repeated myself on something else as well. But yeah, it's all related to everything as well. We all know that, but still. Anyway, guys, hope you will join me again in another one.